My name is Kinlian. I'm not involved in politics, but I pay close attention to issues that affect the people of Singapore. And I have some suggestion on how some changes can be made to improve lives for the people. Particularly, I want to talk now about GST.
I'm Goh Meng Seng. I'm from People's Power Party. I've been in partition politics for about 17 years right now. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to have a discussion with Kinlian on the issues that concern every Singaporean. Kinlian, recently we have a very hotly contested election in Malaysia, and one of the key issues that pop up is actually to abolish the GST. What do you think for Singapore, could we actually abolish it?
Well, I've spoken on this matter 2 months ago in Hong Lim Park. This is about the budget 2018, and my key point is we must abolish GST. That is very important, and I want to explain why. Because although GST is 7%, there is the cost to be incurred by business to account for GST, to collect GST, to pay to the government, and this cost I estimate would be another 3%. So if we abolish GST, we may be able to bring down the cost of living by up to 10%. And this would be very good for people that the cost of living can come down.
So you are saying that the admin cost of GST is actually 3%. That's a bit high, isn't it?
Well, I have actually done some study looking at the cost in other countries. I've seen estimates made that the cost of administering GST is 1 to 2% of the goods and services that are provided. But I believe that it is underestimated. The cost would be higher. So my guess is it's going to be up to 3%.
But fundamentally, the question always posed to us is whether can we afford not to have GST? That was the question actually addressed by Tun Mahathir, that said they can afford, they have enough revenue. But from our side, our PAP ministers are saying that money not enough. We even want to increase GST instead of cutting GST.
GST contribute $11 billion to our budget last year. Now, in our budget process, the government does not count land sale. Now, the figure for land sale is estimated to be an average of 20 billion. This is sale of land to build HDB flats, sale of land to build condo. It's average about 20 billion. Now, if the land sale is counted, then we got 20 billion from land sale average, minus 11 billion from abolishing GST. The government is still in very good surplus.
Okay, there's two problems here. PAP Constitution says that land sales is capital revenue and it should not be used for the budget, for the annual budget. The second thing is, if you use land sales, then there will be a danger of depleting our national reserves. That is their counter argument. What do you think of that?
Well, it's actually the Constitution of Singapore that says land sale is part of the past reserves. Now, if you look at our budget, the land sale is excluded because it is considered to be a capital item, not to be counted. But the budget itself shows for the expenditure side, under Ministry of Transport, $14 billion. And this $14 billion is largely for capital item. It is for the high-speed rail, Singapore to Kuala Lumpur. It's also for MRT lines. So if you don't count land sale because it's a capital item, you should not count this infrastructure because these are also capital items. So if you exclude this the infrastructure, then your 11 billion that is removed because of exemption of GST would be more than compensated.
That's true. But how about the reserve? They are talking about we do not want to deplete reserves, which I find it quite not true at all, because we have almost $1 trillion reserve. You know, what do you think? Do we continue to grow the reserve, or we just have to say enough is enough?
1 trillion in reserve is more than adequate, and somebody actually pointed out to me that the land that is being sold is for 99-year lease. It means after 99 years, the land comes back to the country and can be resold.
Yes.
So there's no need to put this land sale aside, because it can be used for 99 years.
Yes, I think I have also touched on this topic during the Hong Lim Park speech, that if we count capital spending to be financed by capital revenue, land sales, we have more than enough. And it is logical, because you are investing, you are collecting money from land sales, which is future money. Land sales is basically we are collecting future value of the land for 99 years. And we are investing in something that provide value for the future infrastructure for another 30 years, 20 years, why not? I think this is a sound move. So we do not really need GST if we actually do a balance sheet on capital items alone.
Now, I've discussed this abolishing of GST with other people, and some of them said, Mr. Tan, take a look at all the developed countries. Nearly all of them have got GST.
Yes.
So it must be a very good tax,
yes.
a good way of raising revenue. But I hold a different opinion. I said, you tell me which country has got land sale, such a big amount, which country has got COE for purchase of motor car, and foreign workers levy. Now these three items in Singapore is, I estimate, almost 30 billion a year. This is money that the Singapore government has, which other government don't have. If they don't have that revenue, they do need to raise through GST. But in the case of Singapore, we already have got almost 30 billion a year from all these items. We can very easily abolish GST, it's only 11 billion, and still run a budget surplus.
Okay, so but there are people who are still skeptical about the ideas of scrapping GST. They say that why not we try to learn from the other countries. We actually exempt certain items like foodstuff, water from GST. What do you think of that for a start?
Well, if we do need the revenue from GST, then exempting this would be a good move. Exempting essential items would be a good move because they affect the low-income people. But my point is, we don't need the revenue. We can totally abolish GST. We will still be in good surplus. I also want to point out, if we have GST on certain items, then there could be quite a bit of trouble to identify what is to be included, what is to be exempted. For example, food. What about food that you buy from the market that you want to exempt it? The same food that is consumed in restaurants, you got GST.
Okay.
So it can be quite complicated. So if it's possible to exempt totally, it's much better.
Okay, but there's another concern about GST is on the cost of living. Of course, we are becoming the most costly city in the world, and we're actually losing the status of a shopping paradise for third world countries tourists, even first world country tourists. Now, what are your views? Because people say that you can actually redeem your GST when you get out of Singapore for the tourists.
I believe that GST does make it more costly for tourists to come to Singapore. And although they are allowed to have some GST refunded when they leave Singapore, this could be quite troublesome. Troublesome for them to claim the refund. So for most of them, yes, Singapore is a more costly place to visit, and this certainly will make it less attractive for people to come and visit Singapore.
Yeah, I mean, for hotel stay, they cannot claim the refund for GST anyway. For what they have spent on food, they cannot claim. I think overall, I think we are still very expensive for the tourists as well. All right, I think anything you want to add on GST?
When I floated the idea that GST should be abolished, my video is widely seen by about 60,000 people, more and more people now realize that it's a good idea to abolish GST. And recently, the Malaysian general election shows that the cost of living is the key issue. The people are saying the cost of living is too high, and they find that it is largely due to GST, which was introduced 2 years ago in Malaysia. So much so that the election produced a new government. It just shows how important is this cost of living and how GST has made it too expensive. And I believe that we face the same issue in Singapore. Our cost of living is too high. If we can abolish GST, we can bring down the cost of living by up to 10%. It'll be very good for the people.
Thank you, Kinlian. I think we have gone through quite a bit on GST, and I believe that we have a point that we have to abolish GST instead of listening to PAP's point that they are not having enough funds and they want to increase GST from 7 to 9%. And People's Power Party will put this as one of our manifesto's item, that we can afford to abolish GST, and it's good for the economy because it will kickstart a lot of things. Business costs will go down, tourism will actually will go up, right? And there's nothing to be fearful. We have a lot of reserve that we do not continue to increase. And we have enough funds to balance the account as long as we keep capital expenditures to be financed by capital revenue from land sales. Thank you.